Okay. Nicholas Chan,
Yes.
Yellow Shorts Consulting, founder, big boss, wearer of suits. Tell us who you are, man. Who's Nicholas Chan?
Okay, you are talking about Nicholas Chan. Well, Nicholas Chan is basically the owner and founder of Yellow Shorts Consulting. I've been in the training industry for almost 15 years already, coming to 15 years. I started out as an IT guy. I got my first degree was in artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, 15 years. Well, how many years ago was that?
This was the early mid-90s, 97, during the financial crisis. That was my first year in uni.
So there's artificial intelligence in 1997?
Yeah, that's the thing. That was one of those things. And back then it was still very iffy kind of thing, a lot of non-applicable things. Then after that, I went to Singapore to work for a few years. Then I came back. I got into education, right? And that's how I met my wife, right? And after that, I got into training because I realized that, wow, what I earned in one day was actually how much I earned in 1 month as a lecturer. And one of those things that was quite interesting was that I realized that what I was doing as a lecturer was also the same thing I was doing as a trainee. So I got into training. I did a bit of, as the usual thing, freelance here and there for a while until I founded my company, Yellow Shorts.
What were you working in Singapore as? What were you doing in Singapore?
I was IT manager for a logistics firm.
Okay, so IT manager for logistics firm, but now Yellow Shorts is BCM, right? Business Continuity Management.
Yes.
Okay, that's very relevant now because of MCO, right? And the whole and all that, right?
We are also a training provider, but around 3 years ago, we pivoted into business continuity. Back when it wasn't even in fashion yet, right? And at the time, we were doing a lot of resilience topics, business continuity, asset management, enterprise risk management, and a lot of things. We got a couple of consultants. We have a couple of consultants from New Zealand. We got one in Malaysia who's been around the world. We have a consultant in Singapore who's Hayden, he's Australian. So they are all experts in their areas of disaster recovery, crisis management, and business continuity. And in fact, one of our consultants now is actually one of the main chief consultants for the Selangor state government for COVID-19, right? So that's a couple of things. So we've pivoted into that area, and that's why during the MCO, we've managed to actually still retain our business and still stay relevant, basically.
Okay, okay. So how many people does Yellow Shorts have, and what kind of training do you do other than BCM?
Well, before the MCO, we have roughly around 15 people, right? But towards the beginning of the MCO, we had to let a few people go on freelance. We still have them on retainer, but we have them freelance. But currently, right now, we keep a skeleton crew around 5 people, which is why the office was very noisy just now, because we are submitting a lot of things for the Penjana program by HRDF. So, but that's basically it. The programs we are offering right now differ. We still maintain our soft skills program. We still maintain our team building, our leadership with personality. That's always been our bread and butter. But over the past 1.5 years, we've gone into more expert in terms of the resilience business continuity topics. So we do things like ISO 22301, which is the ISO for business continuity management systems. We do a lot of work in terms of business impact analysis. We go into your company and find out how risky are you in terms of issues like COVID-19. It truly exposed a lot of big organizations and even local SMEs in terms of how prepared were they for the COVID-19 and even for the movement control order MCO also. So during the MCO period, we actually did a lot of free programs online to make people more aware about the things they can do before they reopen their business.
Okay. You know how I guess traditionally training is done in person, right? You go to the office, you get all the human interaction. Now it's all done on Zoom, right? Google Meets and all that, just like now, right? Does that take anything away from the quality of the training, do you think?
Okay, I personally am a big proponent of face-to-face training. I think that trainers live on that because we build that personable charisma. We are able to interact with the participants. It's always going to be there. But again, over the past 6 months before the MCO hit, we actually started pivoting towards online learning because I lecture in China. And one of the few things that they taught us is how prevalent was online learning over there. for distance learning, and also for in the case of things like happening like that, they can do online learning for universities. So we did prepare a lot of materials that was ready to go online. So hence we were quite ready for that. So to answer your question, is very simple. Yes, it does take away a lot of that human element in it, but in the circumstances behind social distancing and everything, even with HRDF having their own SOPs for training to begin again, it's going to be some time before companies will be willing to allow their staff to go out to do training again. So it does affect the quality of the training. That's my personal belief.
Yeah, I mean, in your opinion, right, Nicholas, do you think we'll ever come back to a time where we do human face-to-face interaction, face-to-face training? Do you think?
Well, based on the analysis that a lot of our consultants has been telling us, and looking at the market itself, we will still continue to do Zoom training for now. We will still continue to do a blended hybrid of both if we have to. One of the things that we are doing right now, and we hope that we are able to market it even more, and I think the market needs to be ready for this, is self-study programs. People learning at their own pace, people learning at their, you don't have a deadline to reach anymore, especially these certification programs that require a lot of time for you to study and everything. So we are looking at a lot of this. So when do we get back to that? Wow. Based on the analysis from some of our consultants, a year and a half maybe, before people are more confident to go back.
Year and a half, eh? So I mean,
Yeah.
I think somehow or another this whole online training has to really improve, and the whole experience has to be better, right? I'm sure the technology guys will find a way. But so who are some of the guys that you trained in the past? Who are some of the clients?
Some of our clients, we do a lot of international banks, Sumitomo Mitsui Bank, BNP Paribas. We've done work for Allianz. We've done work for quite a number of them. Holcim is a cement company. Now they don't exist anymore. They were bought over in Malaysia. We've done a lot of work for Fonterra. We've done a lot of work for British American Tobacco, Philip Morris. We've done a lot of work for, I mean, over the years, we've had various, we've gone from oil and gas like Petronas to Slimming Sanctuary for women slimming, to Eco Paradise, which is a wellness center, to even an all-women's gym, Curves. And I mean, we've done the whole gamut of interesting industries. So that's what I love about being a trainer, is that we get to see so many people. And the interesting thing about it is that we also get to see how vulnerable these industries are when it came to the MCO and the COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen a spike in business since the MCO started. Have you seen a spike in orders or queries or these training courses?
We have a spike in our consulting work, where we send our consultants in there to tie up. You see, the issue right now in business continuity in Malaysia is that it's still not a very matured market when it comes to business continuity. Even though the various individual topics of business continuity is there, crisis management, disaster recovery, IT disaster recovery are all there, but there is no one big cohesive plan or management system or management plan to tie all of them together. So what we saw during the MCO was this: a lot of companies have all these emergency plans in place, right? But they don't tie them all together. And that's where business continuity management comes into play. You have your crisis plan, you have your succession planning, you have your call tree, you have your supply chain management plan, you have your customer relationship management plan. What do you do when these type of things happen? The MCO shut down almost everything. Supply chain from China was disrupted, supply chain from access to raw materials, so all that. So what we saw in a lot of industries is that they have all these plans, but nothing to bring them together. So our spike was mainly a lot in our consulting and a lot of our programs where we sit down with people to actually work with them through Zoom, where our consultants work with them through Zoom to be able to say, okay, you have this plan and this plan and this plan. So it was a case of the left hand and the right hand not knowing what's happening, right? Some of them were not even aware they have certain plans in place as well, right? So our job was basically to put all of it together during the MCO.
Nothing like a good crisis to really test your BCP and your BCM.
Yeah, I hate to be, you know, the ambulance chaser or the guy who sells umbrella during the storm, you know. You will never like to do business in that format. But in a way, I think we are blessed that we pivoted into that area when there was a big need for it a year and a half ago. Even though we came into the market earlier on, just small inklings, small sprinkles here and there, but it became a little bit more serious, especially during the MCO.
Yeah. So give us an essence, Nicholas, of how your training comprises. Say a BCM training, right? How many days? How many people? What kind of components to the training?
Well, basically, we start off very simple. It can start, okay, what we do is we try not to throw you into the deep end. We normally do an awareness session on what business continuity is all about. We spend normally 2 days with you. We work into things like, for example, your business impact analysis. What's your enterprise risk appetite? What is your current plans that you currently have? You want to put everything down on the table. So it's not really training per se, but it's more or less basically a powwow session. All the top management come in there and say, look, what are the plans that you have and what are the plans that we can work on? What do you don't have? What are the things still in progress? And we work into that. So we do your complete impact analysis. We sort of say, for example, a lot of people always think about processes. Yeah, processes is there, but have you thought about now? One of the I wouldn't say good. I hate saying the word good thing about it, but one of the more significant impacts of the MCO is allow people to see different aspects of their business that they've never thought of as continuity issues. For example, you know that your legal agreements, right? They don't hold up to force majeure. I think BFM actually spoke about this a while back about force majeure, but they got some legal advisors in there, right? And I think all the property market, you got my good friend Tristan who came in to talk about how the property market was happening, everything. So people never expected because no one expected MCO. MCO wasn't covered in any of your legal agreements, right? So how do you account for interruption of service level agreements in terms of the clauses in there? So your continuity from a legal perspective is there, right? Have you thought about it? People started going back to we have to re-look at all our agreements all again with our suppliers, with our vendors, with our clients. Another aspect of it that people didn't realize was finance. We have a situation where your entire finance department is closed down. So what happens to our existing vendors or existing payments? We are not allowed to leave the house. Non-essential companies, especially for those SMEs, they were non-essential. So how do you consolidate all those things? How do you do it? Remember, it was 3 months of closure and lockdown. And even with the CMCO and the RMCO in also, how do you consolidate all your critical stuff to get in there to do this? So business continuity is not just a process, or it's a mindset to sit down to think about what are the areas in your business that you've never thought of that would interrupt your continuity and your continued survival as an entity.
So is there like a role play or like a practical element to your training in terms of, say, giving them a scenario or a bunch of consecutive or even concurrent scenarios, and then you put them through the grinder? And then also how you charge for the service?
Well, okay, we normally go, okay, before I talk about the money, basically we put them through the grinder. Yes, I love what you use that time. We put them through the grinder. We test their processes in place, right? So let's say, for example, your crisis plan, say you are a manufacturing plant. Fire has just occurred in your main warehouse. So let's put your complete crisis plan. So who's the first person you call? The plant manager. Can he be called or not? Can you check his phone? And sometimes when we do this, sometimes the call tree is not updated to the latest number for the plant manager. So now you see that's a gap there already. So your plant manager's number is not the same as the number that was given earlier. And maybe the plan was only updated 3 or 4 years ago, right? Maybe the direct line to the bomba to call the fire brigade is also a different number already. So these are the things that we put them through. Is it relevant? Is it up to current? Some of them don't even update their IT vendor in terms of who's the person in charge to call. In the case of a server attack or it's a power failure, they don't even have the TMB number also in their call tree. So the simplest thing, which is a call tree, right? We go down to that. In the event of a crisis, in the role play session, are you guys prepared for this kind of a crisis when it happens? In terms of how we charge, it depends. If we are doing a day-to-day training, role play awareness session, and when I say the word training, I use the word training loosely because it's not so much as training, but it's more us sitting down with you, facilitating and consulting you on what we have. So it's a very case-to-case basis in terms of how big the organization we're going into. Is it going to be just the main company process? Will it include the subsidiaries? Or are we just going to look at the different individual plans? So we go in there. It's a long-term process where it's like, you know, like playing Lego, right? You have all the pieces everywhere. So we put all the pieces together, and based on the finished pieces, the building or the structure, then we quote and charge from there.
Okay. Well, I guess nobody really saw the extent of how this virus has affected business, right? Everybody's affected. Cinemas are empty, malls were empty, restaurants were empty, hotels, everybody. I mean, there's very few that were not affected, right? Um, in your opinion, how should BCMs and BCPs alter in the next, say, 3 years? Because you know you can't cover everything, right? What is the most effective way they can cope going forward?
Right now, after the MCO has lifted, now we see some semblance of activity and the economy coming back to life again. Right now, is the fortunate thing and the unfortunate thing, I don't know whether you want to look at it that way, is that we have gone beyond the point of continuity. Because continuity is to prevent, right, to mitigate, but now it's happened. So right now it's crisis management. So our focus right now is actually crisis management. What can you do in this interim period? And while you're doing the crisis management, we start working on the plan. So we are going backwards. Normally you go forward. You start with business continuity, crisis management, and recovery. Now we have to go from back. We are now in the recovery process, crisis management, and now we learn from our lesson, continuity. So we are just reversing the cycle around for this current moment, because continuity doesn't work anymore because it's already passed. The COVID-19 has already passed. The MCO has already passed. Now, what's your next step moving forward? Is it crisis? Is it still crisis management? Is it still survival mode? Or is it recovery right now? So from that, once we identify that stage, then we can move forward to be able to prepare different solutions for you.
Okay, so on your website, you it's quite clear that you're HRDF certified, right? Human Resource Development Fund certified. Why should that matter to clients? And does it mean they can cover back every single, like, if they spend $100 with you, can they cover back? Can they claim back $100?
Well, our programs, we've been doing HRDF for some time already. Although we are not registered with any of the HRDF SBR programs, but a lot of our clients who are contributors to the HRDF fund or their individual funds have been using it quite well. So far, to be honest, through the MCO, none have actually used it because HRDF has suspended contribution, I think, until a few more months to go. I think there's 3 or 2 more months to go. The sort of like a moratorium for contribution for the 1% of the contribution. So we are not sure how a lot of companies, but there are companies right now asking for it. There is now this new Penjana program that is actually out, 5 individual HRDF schemes that is going to be put out there for contributors and non-contributors also. So we're actually quite excited to see where that goes into. So right now, for those people who are thinking about recovering and getting training during this post-MCO period and the IMCO period, the Penjana program, just go to HRDF's website under the Penjana link. You can see a lot of the new programs coming up soon.
Okay, man, Nicholas Chan, Yellow Shots Consulting. Thank you very much. Good luck. And see you in a year's time, or maybe even less.
Wow, okay. I don't know. But I think maybe I want to put one final message out there to people. We took a lot of things for granted during the MCO. I think similarly myself also as a training provider, we took a lot of things for granted. A lot of us who are more traditional in terms of our training methods, who are more face-to-face, were faced with the reality that we can't do the same thing anymore. And it might, like I mentioned just now, maybe 1 to 1.5 years, or maybe even worse, 2 years. The worst case scenario is 2 years of having to do this kind of hybrid program. And because with a lot of companies still in recovery mode, they may not be able to spend in terms of training, which is not a main priority, business priority right now. But we do see a big spike in terms of our programs that are more going into resiliency and to help them with the crisis that's going on. With no credible vaccine and no proper protocol in place, I foresee this going on for some time. So I think everyone should be very vigilant. I think that my final message to this is people should be vigilant about this, because we don't know when the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th wave is going to come. And if the government actually implements another MCO, can SMIs and SMEs actually survive the next wave?
Yeah, okay, man. Nicholas, good words, man. Thank you for your thoughts. Good luck with the plan.